You worked all week. Maybe you worked overtime. You showed up, you did the job, and payday finally came. And then you find out there's a fee to take your money out of the ATM. Another fee if you check your balance. Another fee if you don't use the card for a while. Another fee if you need a paper statement. You didn't borrow anything. You didn't spend recklessly. You just got paid. And somehow, the system still found a way to take a cut before you could even touch your own money. That is what a payroll card can do. And millions of workers are carrying one right now without fully realizing how much it can cost them. In this video, we're going to break down exactly how this works, why it hits so hard, what your actual rights are, and the one question you should ask HR or payroll before you ever agree to one of these cards. That question alone could save you real money. Let's get into it. So first, what is a payroll card? A payroll card is a prepaid debit card that an employer can use to pay your wages instead of sending you a check or depositing your money directly into a bank account. When payday comes, your wages get loaded onto the card. You can use it to buy things, withdraw cash at ATMs, and in theory, access your money the same way you would with a normal card. On the surface, that sounds fine, maybe even convenient. No waiting for a check to clear. No running to a bank. The money is right there on the card. The problem is what happens next. A lot of workers say yes to a payroll card without reading what they're agreeing to. The employer presents it, sometimes alongside a stack of other new hire paperwork, and the worker signs off without looking too closely. Why would they? Getting paid should be simple. The idea that receiving your wages could come with a fee schedule feels absurd. But it can, and it does. Payroll cards are a type of prepaid card, which means they can come with fees. Not always the same fees, not always the same amounts. This varies a lot depending on the card issuer and the specific arrangement your employer has set up. But the fees are real, and if you're not paying attention, they can quietly drain your paycheck before you've spent a single dollar on anything you actually chose to buy. Here is what makes this feel different from any other fee you might encounter in life. When you pay a fee at a restaurant, you made a choice. You decided to go there, order something, sit down. When you pay interest on a credit card, you borrowed money and used it before you had it. When you pay for a subscription, you signed up for a service. This is different. This is your paycheck. This is money you already earned. Money that legally belongs to you the moment your employer calculates your wages. You didn't borrow it. You didn't make a questionable financial decision to get it. You went to work. You did your hours. And yet, the system can still extract money from you just for the act of accessing what is rightfully yours. That is the part that should make anyone angry. Not in a dramatic way. Just in a quiet, clear, this is not right way. Now let's talk about where the money actually disappears to, because it doesn't happen in one big, obvious chunk. It happens in small, repeated, easy-to-miss amounts. ATM fees are one of the most common ways workers lose money on payroll cards. Every time you go to withdraw cash from an out-of-network ATM, you can get charged. Sometimes it's a flat fee per transaction. The exact amount depends on the card, but even a few dollars per withdrawal adds up fast if you're pulling money out multiple times a month. Some cards do allow a certain number of free ATM withdrawals, but only at specific in-network machines. If there's no in-network ATM near where you live or work, that free withdrawal benefit becomes basically useless. Balance inquiry fees are another one. This one is almost cruel. If you're budgeting tightly, if you're checking your balance before you go grocery shopping because you need to know exactly what you have, some cards will charge you just for checking. Think about who that hits hardest. It hits the person who is being the most careful. The person who is most trying to make their money last. And the card charges them for the privilege of knowing how much they have left. Inactivity fees can kick in if you don't use the card for a certain period of time. So if you switch to another payment method or simply didn't need to use the card for a few weeks or months, the balance on the card can start shrinking on its own, through no action of your own. Paper statement fees show up if you request a printed statement of your transactions. Some cards charge for this. If you want to track your spending on paper or need a record for any reason, applying for housing, managing a budget, disputing something, that simple request can cost you money. Replacement card fees happen when your card gets lost or damaged and you need a new one. Life happens. Cards get worn out, they get lost, they get stolen. Some payroll cards charge a fee to send you a replacement. So a problem that was not your fault or was simply bad luck turns into another deduction from your wages. Declined transaction fees exist on some cards. If you try to make a purchase and your balance is too low, the card gets declined, and some cards will charge you for the failed transaction. You didn't buy anything. You got rejected, and they charged you for it. None of these fees are secret. They are disclosed in documents. But here's the reality. Those disclosures often arrive alongside other new hire paperwork in dense small print, in a format that is hard to parse even if you're trying to read carefully. And most people are not trying to read carefully in that moment. They're starting a new job, they're overwhelmed with forms, and they assume that receiving their paycheck is not something they need to investigate. That assumption is exactly what makes this work. Now here is the part most workers never hear about. And this might be the most important thing in this entire video. In most situations, an employer cannot legally force you to accept a payroll card as your only option for receiving your wages. That's not a loophole. That's not a technicality. That is a real protection rooted in wage payment laws, and it exists at both the federal level and in many state laws. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the CFPB, the federal agency that handles consumer financial protections, has addressed payroll cards specifically. The general principle is that workers should have access to their wages without being required to pay a fee just to get the full amount. Many states have their own wage payment laws that go even further, requiring that employers offer alternatives like direct deposit or paper check. What this means practically is that if your employer is handing you a payroll card and acting like it's the only option, you are likely entitled to ask about alternatives. You may have the right to choose direct deposit into your own bank account instead. You may be entitled to a paper check. Depending on your state, your employer may even be required to tell you these alternatives exist. The problem is that many workers are never told this. The card is presented as the way things are done here, and no one mentions that you had a choice. The people this hits hardest are not the workers who have multiple bank accounts and plenty of financial cushion. Those workers might take the card, look at the fee schedule, roll their eyes, and set up direct deposit instead. The workers who get hurt the most are the ones who needed every dollar of that paycheck. The ones living paycheck to paycheck with no buffer. The ones who don't have a traditional bank account, maybe because they had trouble opening one in the past, or because they never had access to a branch near where they live. The ones who need cash right now because rent is due today. For those workers, every fee is not an inconvenience. It is a direct reduction in their take-home pay. It is a quiet tax on being lower income and on needing money urgently. And that tax doesn't go to the government or to any public purpose. It goes to a card issuer. There is something particularly sharp about the fact that the people least able to afford bank fees are often the exact people who end up with payroll cards because they don't have a bank account to use for direct deposit instead. They get handed the card, they think it's fine, and then the fees start. So how do you know if you're dealing with one of these situations? Here are the warning signs. The employer pushes the payroll card as the obvious default, the easy choice, the thing everyone does, without mentioning any alternatives. That pressure, even if it's soft and unofficial, is a sign that you should slow down and ask questions. The fee schedule is hard to find, or it's buried in a long document with no plain English explanation of what the most common actions will actually cost. If you have to work hard to understand what you'll be charged for, that is not an accident. The card is described as free or as a benefit, without any mention of specific fees. No card is entirely free to operate. If someone is describing it in purely positive terms with no mention of any costs, they are giving you an incomplete picture. You're not clearly told how to access your full wages without paying a fee. This is a key detail. A worker should be able to get their entire paycheck, every dollar, without any of it being consumed by fees. If no one explains how to do that, or if there's no realistic way to do it given your location or situation, that's a problem. You feel rushed. Paperwork is moving fast, there's a lot of it, and the payroll card enrollment is presented as just another form to sign. Anything that matters should be given its own moment of attention. So what should you actually do? Whether you're looking at one of these cards for the first time or you already have one in your wallet, here is what matters. Before you accept the card, ask payroll or HR for the other options. Ask specifically whether you can do direct deposit into your own bank account. Ask if a paper check is available. Don't assume you've been told everything just because no one volunteered alternatives. Ask for the fee schedule in writing before you decide anything. Not a verbal summary, the actual document. Read it with specific attention to ATM fees, balance inquiry fees, inactivity fees, and what it costs to replace the card. Those are the fees most likely to quietly eat your money. If you're comparing the payroll card to direct deposit, the comparison is usually straightforward. With direct deposit to your own bank account, your wages arrive and you access them using whatever your bank offers. If your bank has free ATM withdrawals or a large network, that's probably cheaper than a payroll card with fees. If you don't have a bank account, it may be worth looking at what it would take to open one, because some banks and credit unions offer low-fee or no-fee accounts that could serve you better than a payroll card with a long fee schedule. If you already have the card and want to reduce what you're paying in fees, look for the in-network ATMs for that card. Many cards have a locator tool. Using in-network ATMs, if there's a free withdrawal limit, is usually cheaper than using whatever ATM is nearby. Withdraw larger amounts less often rather than making small withdrawals frequently. Every trip to the ATM may cost you money, so fewer trips means fewer fees. Avoid balance inquiries at the ATM if those are charged. Check your balance through the card's app or website instead, if those methods are free. And if you believe your employer is not giving you the option of other payment methods, or if you feel like your wages are being reduced by fees in a way that isn't right, you can look into the wage payment laws for your specific state. Many states have a labor commissioner or a Department of Labor that handles wage complaints. The CFPB also has resources on payroll cards and prepaid accounts that explain your rights. Now here is the question to ask. The one I promised you at the start. When you sit down with HR or payroll, ask this: what is the way I can receive my full wages, every dollar, without any fees taken out? Not what are my options? Not can I do direct deposit? Ask specifically about receiving your full wages with no fees. That question forces a real answer. It makes clear that you understand fees exist and you want to know how to avoid them. And if the person you're asking can't answer it or gets uncomfortable, you've already learned something important. The biggest mistake workers make in this situation is the most understandable one. They assume that because their employer offered the card, it must be fine. Employers offer lots of things that are not necessarily in the worker's best interest. That's not always bad intent. Sometimes it's just convenience or cost savings for the business or a deal the company made with a card provider. But the worker's financial interest is not automatically the same as the employer's financial interest. Saying yes to the card because it was offered feels safe. It feels like the normal thing to do. And the cost of that assumption is paid out slowly, in small fees, week after week, until a worker has quietly lost a meaningful amount of their own earned wages. There's a certain indignity in the whole setup. A person goes to work, they do their job, and then a portion of what they earned is quietly redirected before they can even spend it on something they chose. Not because they did anything wrong. Not because they owe a debt. Just because no one explained how the card worked before they signed up for it. That should not be how getting paid works. You earned your wages. All of them. And you have every right to understand exactly how your money will reach you, what it will cost to access it, and whether a better option exists. None of that is complicated to ask about. It just requires knowing that the question is worth asking. Getting paid should not come with a fee schedule attached to it. Before you go, I want to hear from you. Have you ever worked somewhere where the payment method felt like part of the problem? Maybe you had a payroll card. Maybe you saw the fees pile up. Maybe you never even realized what was happening until it was too late. Drop it in the comments. This is the kind of thing people don't talk about nearly enough, and you might help someone else avoid the same situation just by sharing what you went through.